The morning sun cast long shadows across the Naval Special Warfare Facility as Staff Sergeant Maya Jackson finished her final equipment check. She had been placing rifles back on the weapon rack when Captain James Walker spotted something that made him stop in his tracks. There, pinned to her tactical vest, was a small metal badge with the code name that had become legendary in military circles, Crosswind. Before we dive in, tell us, where in the world are you watching from? If you enjoy stories like this, make sure to hit that subscribe button, because tomorrow's episode is truly mind-blowing. Let's get started. Maya didn't notice the captain's stare as she continued her routine. She had just returned from what everyone believed was an impossible mission. 3 weeks ago, the Navy SEALs had declared the operation too dangerous, too complex, and simply beyond human capability. They said no single operative could infiltrate the heavily fortified compound, extract the hostages, and escape without backup. They were wrong. Captain Walker approached slowly, his eyes fixed on the badge. He had heard whispers about Crosswind for months, stories that seemed too incredible to believe. Some said it was a ghost, others claimed it was an entire special ops team using a single identity. But here was Maya Jackson, a 28-year-old sniper from Detroit, wearing the badge like it was just another piece of equipment. The mission that had made her famous started on a rainy Tuesday night at exactly 11:37 p.m. Intelligence reports had confirmed that 3 American journalists were being held in a compound deep in enemy territory. The building was surrounded by guard towers, motion sensors, and over 40 armed soldiers. The SEALs had run countless simulations, each ending in failure or casualties too high to accept. Maya had studied the same reports in her small quarters, marking patrol routes and guard schedules with a red pen. While others saw an impossible fortress, she saw patterns. The guards changed shifts every 4 hours. The motion sensors had blind spots near the eastern wall. Most importantly, there was a 30-second window every hour when the rooftop sentries looked away to check their phones. She had requested the mission 3 times before her commanding officer finally agreed to let her try. Major Robert Hayes had known Maya since she was a rookie, fresh out of sniper school with scores that broke records. He had watched her complete missions that left seasoned veterans speechless. If anyone could do the impossible, it was her. Maya left the base alone at 8:45 p.m. on a motorcycle, carrying only essential gear. She had painted her face with dark camouflage and wore night vision goggles that gave her an advantage in complete darkness. The compound was 60 miles away through dangerous territory where enemy patrols roamed freely. She reached the outer perimeter at 2:17 a.m. and spent 40 minutes studying guard movements through her scope. The compound looked exactly like the satellite photos, but real observation revealed details that cameras missed. The eastern guard tower had a loose board that creaked when the wind blew. The dogs in the yard were fed at 3 a.m. and became drowsy afterward. The main entrance had bright lights, but shadows created perfect hiding spots along the western fence. Maya moved like smoke through the darkness, timing her approach with the guard rotations. She had memorized every step of her route, every obstacle she would encounter. When the rooftop sentry turned away to check his phone at 3:07 a.m., she was already climbing the eastern wall using specialized grips that made no sound against the concrete. The compound's interior was a maze of buildings and courtyards. Maya had studied the blueprints until she could navigate them blindfolded. The hostages were being held in the central building's basement, guarded by at least 8 soldiers. Getting to them meant crossing 3 open courtyards and passing through 2 checkpoints without being detected. She used every shadow, every blind spot her reconnaissance had revealed. When guards walked their patrol routes, she was already hidden in the next position. Her movements were precise and calculated, like a deadly dance choreographed to avoid detection. She reached the central building at 3:41 a.m., exactly on schedule. The basement entrance was locked with an electronic system that should have stopped any infiltrator. Maya had anticipated this and brought specialized equipment that could bypass the security without triggering alarms. She had trained for months with similar locks, practicing until she could open them in complete darkness within 90 seconds. Inside the basement, she found the 3 journalists in a small cell, weak but alive. They were James Crawford, a war correspondent with 20 years of experience, Susan Miller, a photographer known for her courage in dangerous situations, and David Park, a young reporter on his first international assignment. They looked at Maya with disbelief, unable to comprehend that a single soldier had reached them. Maya whispered quick instructions, explaining the escape route and timing. They had exactly 17 minutes before the next guard check. The journalists were frightened and exhausted, but she needed them to move quickly and silently. She gave each of them a small communication device and told them to follow her signals exactly. The escape route was different from her entry path, designed to avoid areas where guards would be more alert after the shift change. Maya led them through service tunnels that ran beneath the compound, passages that the enemy had forgotten about but that showed up in old construction blueprints she had studied. They emerged near the southern fence at 4:28 a.m., just as Maya had planned. The guard tower there was positioned to watch the main approaches, not the small utility gate that maintenance workers used. She had noticed during her surveillance that this gate was only checked every 2 hours, and they were in the middle of that window. Maya cut through the fence with wire cutters, creating an opening just large enough for them to crawl through. The journalists moved slowly, their bodies still weak from captivity, but they followed her instructions without question. She could see in their eyes that they trusted her completely, even though they didn't know her name or how she had found them. Getting away from the compound was only half the mission. They still had to travel 60 miles through enemy territory to reach safety. Maya had hidden a vehicle 2 miles away, an old truck that looked local but had been modified with additional armor and a powerful engine. She had stolen it 3 days earlier and prepared it specifically for this escape. The drive back was tense and dangerous. Enemy patrols were everywhere, and Maya had to use back roads and hidden paths that most people didn't know existed. She drove without headlights, using night vision equipment to navigate the treacherous terrain. The journalists sat silently in the back, understanding that any noise could alert nearby enemies. At 6:15 a.m., they encountered their first patrol. Maya saw the enemy vehicles before they saw her and quickly pulled off the road behind a cluster of trees. She instructed everyone to lie flat and remain completely still. The patrol passed within 50 feet of their hiding spot, but the modified truck blended perfectly with the surrounding vegetation. They reached the extraction point at 7:45 a.m., just as the sun was rising over the mountains. Maya had coordinated with a helicopter crew that was waiting in neutral territory, ready to fly the rescued journalists to safety. As the helicopter landed, kicking up clouds of dust and debris, she finally allowed herself to believe that the mission had succeeded. The journalists thanked her repeatedly as they boarded the aircraft, but Maya simply nodded and stepped back. She watched the helicopter disappear into the morning sky before getting back in the truck for the long drive back to base. She had completed the impossible mission in less than 12 hours, alone, without firing a single shot or causing any casualties. When she arrived back at the base, Major Hayes was waiting with a mixture of relief and amazement on his face. The successful rescue had already been reported through military channels, but the details seemed too incredible to believe. How had one soldier accomplished what an entire SEAL team thought was impossible? Maya gave her report in simple, factual language, describing each phase of the mission without emotion or drama. She had studied the target, identified weaknesses in their security, and executed a plan that maximized stealth and minimized risk. To her, it was just another successful operation, not the legendary feat that others saw it as. The story spread quickly through military networks, and Maya became known by her code name, Crosswind. Other soldiers began to request her for impossible missions, operations that conventional forces couldn't handle. She completed each assignment with the same methodical approach, turning impossible tasks into routine successes. Now, 3 weeks later, Captain Walker stood in the equipment room staring at the badge that had become a symbol of the impossible. Maya finished storing her weapons and turned to leave, but he called out to her. Captain Walker, Maya responded simply, acknowledging his presence without surprise or concern. "That badge you're wearing," he said, pointing to the small metal piece on her vest. "How many people know what Crosswind really is?" Maya looked down at the badge, then back at the captain. "Just the ones who need to know, sir." She paused for a moment, then added the mission was successful. "The hostages are safe. That's all that matters." Walker nodded slowly, understanding that some legends were better left as mysteries. Maya Jackson had proven that the impossible was simply another word for difficult, and that one determined soldier could accomplish what entire teams thought was beyond reach. She had done it not through superhuman abilities or advanced technology, but through careful planning, precise execution, and unwavering determination. As Maya walked away from the equipment room, Captain Walker remained behind, thinking about the implications of what he had witnessed. The military had always celebrated courage and skill, but Crosswind represented something different. She was proof that the right person with the right training and mindset could overcome any obstacle. The SEALs had said it couldn't be done. They were wrong. Maya Jackson, operating under the codename Crosswind, had shown that there were no impossible missions, only missions that required someone brave enough to attempt them and skilled enough to succeed. In the months that followed, Maya would continue to take on assignments that others considered impossible. Each mission added to the legend of Crosswind, creating stories that would be told in military circles for years to come. But for Maya, each operation was simply another problem to solve, another challenge to overcome through careful planning and flawless execution. The badge on her vest remained her only acknowledgement of these achievements. To everyone else, she was just Staff Sergeant Maya Jackson, a skilled soldier doing her job. But to those who knew about her impossible missions, she was Crosswind, the operative who proved that determination and skill could overcome any obstacle. The morning sun continued to shine through the windows of the equipment room as Captain Walker finally left, carrying with him the knowledge that legends sometimes walked among ordinary soldiers. Maya Jackson had shown him that heroes didn't need recognition or fame. They just needed the courage to attempt the impossible and the skill to make it look routine.